I was 15 when my stepmom told the biggest lie of my life, and my dad believed her. He threw me out with nothing but a trash bag and a warning never to come near them again. No goodbye, no second chances, just the door slammed shut behind me. That was 16 years ago. Since then, I built a life from the ground up. I worked, studied, and fought for every inch. Until I had everything they once told me I'd never have: a home, a family, and success. I never thought I'd see them again. But a few months ago, they showed up at my door. Not to apologize, not to make things right, but to beg me to help their daughter. The same daughter they chose over me. What they didn't know was, she wasn't even his daughter to begin with. My name is Lucas, and for most of my childhood, I felt like an unwanted guest in my own home. My mother died when I was 5, cancer. She was the kind of mom who packed little notes in my lunchbox and sang off-key lullabies at bedtime. When she was gone, everything changed. My dad, David, was crushed. For a while, he just existed. He'd go to work, come home, and sit in the dark. I remember trying to make him dinner once, burnt mac and cheese. But he didn't even notice. A year later, he met Tamara. She was beautiful, warm on the surface, the kind of woman who knew how to charm a room. At first, she tried hard to be the cool stepmom, buying me things, showing up to school plays, calling me sweetheart. But something shifted after she married my dad and had a daughter, Emma. Suddenly, I was just in the way. Emma was everything I wasn't: quiet, polite, angelic. At least that's how Tamara painted her. She dressed her in perfect bows, posted every milestone on social media, and called her our little miracle. I wasn't even in the family photos anymore. Literally, there was one frame picture where I'd been cropped out so it would fit the frame better. I was 13. My dad changed too. Or maybe he was always that way, and I just didn't notice when mom was around. Nothing I did was good enough. I got a B+ in science once. He asked why it wasn't an A. I made the soccer team. He asked why I wasn't starting. When I tried to talk to him, he'd say, "Stop being dramatic." Or worse, "You're not a kid anymore. Grow up." At the time, I didn't have the words for it. Looking back, I'm almost certain I had undiagnosed ADHD. I had trouble focusing in class, couldn't sit still, and was forgetful. But instead of asking if something was wrong, they just decided I was lazy and disrespectful. Tamara especially loved the troubled teen narrative. She'd sigh and say things like, "Lucas just needs structure," while Emma spilled juice on the carpet and was called our precious. Tamara was subtle with her cruelty. She'd forget to set a plate for me at dinner, or accidentally ruin my clothes in the wash, or tell my dad I'd been acting strange when I'd barely said a word all day. It was psychological warfare, and I was losing. I started staying out late, not because I was rebelling, but because the silence at home felt heavier than the night outside. I'd sit in the park or walk aimlessly through the neighborhood just to avoid going back. No one asked where I'd been. No one cared. The worst part, I still tried to be good. I still tried to make them proud. I still believed, somewhere deep down, that maybe if I just did everything right, they'd see me again. They didn't. And that blind hope, that desperate need to belong, that's exactly what made the betrayal hurt even more when it finally came. I thought maybe I could just forget what I saw. Maybe Tamara didn't notice me in the park. That I could carry on and somehow protect what was left of my place in that house. But I underestimated her. Tamara wasn't just cruel. She was calculated. 2 days after the gazebo, I woke up to find my school uniform still soaking wet in the laundry machine. Tamara claimed it was a miscommunication. I showed up late to class and got detention. Then the next day, I couldn't find my history project, the one I'd spent 2 weeks on. It had vanished from my backpack. She told Dad I probably never did it and was just making excuses again. Piece by piece, she was building her case. And then came the worst night of my life. I came home from school and noticed the house was too quiet. No TV, no kitchen noises, just a strange kind of silence, like the house was holding its breath. When I walked in, I saw Tamara sitting on the couch, crying into a tissue. Dad was pacing near the window, fists clenched, his face red with rage. Emma wasn't in sight. Before I could even ask what was going on, 2 police officers stepped into the hallway. "Lucas," one of them asked, "would like to have a word." They took me to the dining room while the others stayed with my dad and Tamara. That's when they told me. Tamara had accused me of touching Emma, of being inappropriate. Emma supposedly confirmed it, though I later learned she just repeated whatever Tamara told her to say. I remember every second like it's burned into my brain. My hands are shaking. My mouth is dry. The coppery taste of panic in the back of my throat. "I didn't do anything," I whispered. But they kept asking, "Where did it happen? How many times? Did I threaten her?" It felt like I was drowning, and every time I gasped for air, someone pushed my head back under. I heard Tamara crying dramatically in the other room, saying things like, "I should have seen the signs. And I thought he was getting better. And my dad, my own father, said nothing to defend me. Not once. Eventually, the officers left. They didn't arrest me because there was no evidence. But by then, the damage was done. Dad threw a garbage bag at my feet. Told me I had 10 minutes to pack my things and get out. He said if I ever came near Emma again, he'd kill me himself. I tried to speak, to tell him about Tamara and the man in the park. I even shouted Ryan's name, but Dad wouldn't listen. He grabbed my shirt and shoved me toward the stairs like I was something rotten that needed to be thrown out. Tamara just stood there, arms wrapped protectively around Emma like I was a monster. Emma didn't look scared. She looked confused, like none of it made sense, like she'd just been handed a script she didn't understand. As I walked out that night with a torn duffel bag and $40 in my wallet, I looked back one last time. Dad was holding Emma. Tamara was crying into his chest, and I realized I'd been erased. Not just from the house, from the family. I walked for hours that night, but I couldn't feel my legs, or my hands, or anything, really. I think shock does that to you, numbs everything just enough so you don't collapse all at once. I didn't have a plan. No relatives. No friends I could go to. Tamara had already poisoned every relationship I had. By the time I left that house, she'd made sure I was labeled dangerous, someone to be feared and avoided. I found that out fast. I knocked on 2 doors, parents of kids I'd grown up with. The first one never opened. The second opened just enough for a mom to say, "I think you should leave," before slamming it shut. Eventually, I ended up behind a closed-down grocery store, curled up behind a dumpster with my bag for a pillow and my hoodie pulled tight around my face. I didn't sleep. I just endured. That was my first night homeless. The days blurred together after that. I tried to go to school the next morning, but I hadn't showered, hadn't eaten, and everyone looked at me like I was radioactive. One teacher pulled me aside and asked if I was okay. But before I could answer, the school counselor showed up and escorted me out, for everyone's comfort. I never went back. I stole crackers from a gas station on the 3rd night. I felt sick about it, nauseous from guilt, not just hunger. But I hadn't eaten in 2 days, and my stomach was starting to cramp in ways that scared me. I thought I was dying, and maybe a part of me wanted to. Then I met Frank. He found me behind an abandoned train depot on the edge of town. Just a shadow in a doorway at first. I was shivering, trying to start a fire with a lighter I found on the ground. He didn't say anything, just dropped a blanket beside me, and sat down a few feet away. "You're new," he finally said. I didn't answer. "You'll want to stay off Main Street after midnight. Cops do sweeps. Real mean about it." Still, I said nothing. "You got a name, or should I just call you Kid, who's about to freeze to death?" "Lucas," I muttered. He nodded like that was enough. "Frank." That was it. No interrogation. No judgment. Just a man with more years on the street than I'd been alive, and for some reason, he decided I was worth saving. Over the next few weeks, Frank taught me everything. How to find the shelters that didn't ask too many questions, which restaurants tossed out edible leftovers at closing time, and how to layer clothes to keep warm without looking like a walking garbage pile. He even showed me which churches had clean bathrooms and which ones had cameras you needed to avoid. He called it urban survival. I called it life. We stayed in this old storage building near the tracks for a while. It leaked when it rained, stank like oil and mildew, and rats ran through the corners at night. But it was shelter. And for a 15-year-old who'd been accused of something unthinkable, it was the closest thing to safety I'd known in weeks. Frank never pried. He never asked me what I did to end up there. But one night, as we shared half a cup of instant noodles and a sleeve of saltines, I broke the silence. They said I hurt someone, that I touched her. I didn't. I swear I didn't. Frank looked at me, not with pity but with something deeper. "I believe you," he said quietly. Just those 3 words, and somehow, in a world that had turned its back on me, that was enough to keep going. It was Frank who pushed me to leave. "You're not meant to rot in a place like this," he said one morning as I folded a donated blanket. "You've still got a future. You just need a running start." I didn't believe him at first, but the way he looked at me, like I wasn't broken, just bent, I held on to that. A week later, the police raided the depot. Someone had reported squatters. They gave us 10 minutes to clear out. I lost most of what little I had, a tattered hoodie and a notebook I'd been using to sketch floor plans and dream up imaginary buildings. All gone. Frank handed me a crumpled piece of paper with an address on it. "My cousin runs a diner in the city. Might let you wash dishes if you don't scare off the customers." Then he did something I'll never forget. He gave me the last $40 he had. "I'm too old to start over," he said, almost laughing. "But you're not." I never saw him again. I took a Greyhound to the city that night. I spent my first 2 nights sleeping in the bus station, then wandered my way to a narrow, brick-walled diner at the edge of downtown. Ellie's Griddle. It smelled like burnt coffee and bacon grease. That's where I met Olivia. Well, technically, I met her dad first. Mr. Granger, the owner. Big guy, gray ponytail, looked like he'd pressed kegs for a hobby. He didn't ask many questions. Just handed me an apron and said, "If you break anything, you mop twice." For the next few months, I scrubbed pans and floors and toilets. Slept in the storage room behind the freezer. Ate leftovers. Kept to myself. Then one night, she walked in. She had paint on her jeans and a business textbook in her hands. Waved at the cook like she came there every Tuesday. Which she did. Olivia Granger, art major with a minor in finance, daughter of my boss. And, as I would later learn, the first person in years to actually see me. She ordered pancakes and asked me if I liked the way they were cooked. I just washed dishes. I muttered. "But you're here." She smiled. "That counts." We started talking. Just little things at first. Her classes, books I like, food we both hated, looking at you, canned peas. Eventually, she asked what I wanted to do. If I could do anything. I didn't know how to answer. No one had ever asked me that before. But one night, I showed her a napkin I'd sketched on during a slow shift. A layout of a dream cafe, counter placement, back kitchen flow, even an outdoor seating section. She stared at it like I'd handed her a blueprint to a castle. "You think in design," she said. "You should study business." I laughed. I never even finished high school. She leaned in. "Then finish it. Get your GD. I'll help." And she did. For the next year, I worked mornings and studied at the library at night. Olivia helped me with math. I passed the test. She cheered louder than I did. Then something shifted. She told her dad about my sketches. About the way I talked through cost flow and logistics like I was already managing something. He introduced me to one of his friends in real estate, a guy named Mr. Delgado, who ran a property development firm across town. He offered me an unpaid internship. "You've got an eye," he said. "You just need polish." And just like that, I took my first step out of the shadows. 16 years. That's how long it had been since I'd heard my father's voice. In that time, I'd gone from a homeless teenager to a project manager in one of the city's fastest growing real estate firms. I had a team under me, a mortgage, a retirement plan, and a wife, Olivia, who stuck with me through every rough patch, and a son named Ethan who thought I hung the moon. I didn't need closure. Or so I thought. Then, one Monday morning, I got a Facebook notification. "David Harrison has sent you a friend request." I stared at the screen for a long time, my heart pounding like I was 15 again. Same profile picture, that rigid jawline, the silver fleck beard. His face was older now, sunken in, but the eyes were still sharp. Still the man who had told me I was no longer his son. I didn't accept it, not right away. That night, Olivia found me sitting in the dark, phone in hand. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. I showed her the screen. She didn't say anything for a while, just read his message. "Lucas, I know it's been a long time. I've been thinking a lot about the past. Tamara and I would like to see you. Emma asks about you. We'd like a chance to make things right, please." I laughed. Not the amused kind. The bitter kind. "Emma asks about me." I muttered. She was 8. She probably thinks I disappeared like a ghost. Olivia sat beside me and took my hand. "You don't owe them anything," she said. "I know," I whispered. "But I want to know, why now?" "Against my better judgment," I replied. His response came quickly. Said he'd had some health scares. Said Emma was engaged, starting her own life, and they wanted to reconnect, as a family. I agreed to a visit, one time, at my house, with Olivia there. They arrived on a Saturday morning. Tamara looked exactly the same. Expensive haircut, designer scarf, perfect posture. But the sparkle was dulled, the confidence forced. Dad had aged. His walk was slower, a limp in his left leg. And Emma, she was a woman now. Same auburn hair, soft voice. She smiled politely, unsure, like meeting a cousin she barely remembered. We made coffee. Sat in the living room. Small talk about weather, work, and how fast kids grow. Then Emma spotted a photo on the wall, me, Olivia, and Ethan. "Is this your son?" she asked, walking closer. I nodded. "That's Ethan. He's 4. I'm an aunt," she whispered, eyes misting. Tamara rushed to hug her, like they'd won some emotional point. I stayed quiet, watching it all from a distance. Then Dad clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Can we talk? Just us?" I led him to my office, still unsure why I'd agreed to this. He sat in my chair like he still owned everything. Looked around, nodding. "You've done well," he said. "Real estate suits you. It's funny what people can achieve when no one's trying to ruin them." I replied. He flinched, just for a second. Then he leaned forward. "Emma's getting married. Her fiancé's great, but the housing market's brutal. We've been looking, and well." His eyes scanned the room. "You've got a beautiful home. 5 bedrooms, big backyard. It would be perfect for a young couple." I blinked. Was he Was he asking me to give them my house? He must have seen the disbelief in my face because he added, not give. Just maybe sell it to her for a fair price. You could always buy another. And just like that, I understood. They didn't come to make peace. They came to take. Again. For a moment, I just stared at my father. This man, who once threw me out like trash, who hadn't spoken my name in 16 years, was now sitting in my office, in my chair, asking me to hand over my home to the very daughter he chose over me. I felt the rage building in my chest like a dam about to break. Are you seriously asking me to give my house to Emma? I asked, voice tight. Not give. He repeated, as if that somehow made it better. You'd be a good deal. You're doing well now. You can afford something else. I let out a cold laugh. Right, because that's what this is about. Not an apology, not reconnection. Just another way for you to take what's mine. He looked offended. Son, don't call me that. The silence hung heavy between us. You kicked me out at 15 based on a lie, I said, my voice rising. You never even looked at me again, never questioned what Tamara said. And now you want to play happy family because you need a favor. That was a misunderstanding, he muttered. I stood up. A misunderstanding. You believed I hurt Emma. You let the police interrogate me like I was some predator. You left me with nothing. Dad shifted uncomfortably. We didn't know what to think. Tamara was upset. Tamara is a liar, I snapped. And I have proof. That caught his attention. What proof? I leaned in, dropping my voice. You want to talk about Emma? Let's talk about her real father. His brows furrowed. What are you talking about? I saw Tamara with him once. Ryan. In the park, 16 years ago. I didn't say anything then. Because I knew you wouldn't believe me. But you should have noticed, Dad. The hair color, the eyes, the face that looks nothing like you. Dad's face went pale. I didn't stop. You want to know what really happened? Tamara realized I saw them together. She panicked. She couldn't risk me telling you. So she flipped the narrative, made me the threat, and you, like always, believed her. Just then, Tamara appeared at the door, her smile brittle. Is everything okay in here? I turned to her, the heat in my voice barely restrained. Oh, everything's wonderful, Tamara. We were just discussing how you framed a 15-year-old boy to cover up the fact that Emma isn't even David's daughter. The air was sucked out of the room. Dad froze. Tamara's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Emma, who must have heard us from the hallway, stepped into the doorway. What do you mean? She asked quietly. No one answered. So I did. I'm saying your mom lied. Ryan wasn't just a friend. He was your real father. Emma's hands started to tremble. Mom, she whispered. Tamara reached out. Sweetheart, don't listen to him. He's just angry. He's always been angry. Don't, I barked. Don't you dare gaslight her the way you did me. Dad stood up slowly, but he looked like he'd aged 20 years in a minute. Is it true? He asked Tamara, his voice barely audible. She didn't answer. Emma ran. Tamara turned back to me, eyes wild. You've ruined everything. You always ruin everything. No, I said calmly. I just told the truth. You're the one who built everything on lies. Down the hall, I heard Olivia calling for Emma, trying to calm her down. Ethan's toys clattered in the living room. My life, my real life, was just outside that door. And I realized something in that moment. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted them gone. Get out, I said. Tamara looked like she wanted to protest. Dad looked too stunned to speak. Now, they left without another word. I found Olivia and Ethan in the backyard. Olivia looked up at me, reading everything on my face. Are you okay? She asked. I am now, I said, pulling them both into my arms. Inside, I could still hear the echo of what had just happened. But for the first time in years, the house felt clean. Clear. Mine. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. No calls from my father. No messages from Tamara. No knocks on the door. Just the usual rhythm of breakfast with Ethan, Olivia humming while folding laundry, and me staring at my phone longer than I cared to admit. I told myself I felt peace. I lied. Because the silence was only temporary. 3 days after the confrontation, I got a text from an unknown number. Can we talk? Emma, I stared at it for a long time. Then I locked my phone and walked away, but she kept trying. Texts came in bursts. I need answers. I don't know who I am anymore. Was everything a lie? One at 2:43 a.m. simply read, I can't sleep. Olivia noticed I wasn't myself. You don't owe her anything, she said gently one night as we lay in bed. She's not the one who hurt you. I know, I replied, but she's hurting too. Olivia sighed. I just don't want you pulled back in. I won't be. I promised. But the truth is, I already was. Eventually, I agreed to meet Emma at a coffee shop across town. Neutral ground, bright lights, public, safe. She looked different, smaller somehow, her shoulders hunched, eyes rimmed with fatigue. In her hands was a photo, one I hadn't seen in years. Me, her and Dad at a fair. She must have been 6. I was 12, grinning through a mouthful of cotton candy. I found this in a box Mom kept. She said, voice soft. You were my brother. I still am, I replied. In a way. Tears welled in her eyes. Everything feels fake now. My childhood. My family. I don't even know who I am. I know what that feels like, I said. She looked up. Do you hate me? The question hit harder than I expected. No, I said truthfully. I never hated you. I hated what they turned you into. What they used you for. She nodded slowly. I believed them when they said you were dangerous. I was just a kid, but I remember feeling scared of you. I'm sorry. I took a deep breath. You didn't know. It wasn't your fault. You were just a pawn in their game. We sat in silence for a while. The noise of coffee machines and quiet chatter filled the gaps we couldn't. Tamara's in rehab, she said eventually. Dad's. Well, I don't know. He hasn't spoken to me since that day. I'm not surprised. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I'm thinking about leaving town. Starting fresh. I nodded. That might be the best thing for you. She hesitated. Can we stay in touch? I paused. Part of me wanted to say yes, to offer her the sibling bond we never really had. But another part, the one that still remembered sleeping behind dumpsters and flinching at police sirens, told me I needed space. Maybe someday? I said quietly, but not right now. She nodded, eyes wet but understanding. Thank you for meeting me, she said. And for not hating me. I gave her a small, sad smile. You didn't destroy my life, Emma. But now it's up to you not to destroy your own. We parted with no hug, no promises, just the quiet recognition that we were both survivors of the same storm, drifting on separate rafts. When I got home, Olivia was in the nursery, folding tiny onesies for the baby girl we were expecting. She looked up as I stepped inside. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, wrapping my arms around her from behind. I think I finally let go. The house felt different after that, like some invisible weight had finally been lifted. The air seemed lighter. The silence was no longer haunted. Even the shadows in the hallway felt softer, less like memories, more like home. We turned the guest room, the one my father wanted for Emma, into a nursery. Olivia picked soft pinks and grays. She hung little felt stars from the ceiling and painted a quote above the crib. You are more than what came before you. I couldn't have said it better. Sometimes, I'd just stand in the doorway and watch the room. Empty for now, but full of possibility. A space not built on lies or fear, but love. Ethan was excited to be a big brother. He kept suggesting names like Rocket and Peanut. We settled on Maya. She's going to love this room. Olivia said one night as we folded laundry together. She'll never know what almost happened here. I nodded. That's the point. I thought I'd feel triumphant once the truth came out. I imagined vindication would feel like a flame, righteous and roaring. But instead, it felt like a slow exhale. Like letting go of a breath I didn't know I'd been holding for years. My dad ended up pleading guilty to assault. 3 years. I didn't go to the trial. My lawyer said it wasn't necessary, and honestly, I didn't want to look at him again. Not in that setting. Not in a courtroom where everything I'd buried would be dragged into the light again. Tamara stayed in rehab longer than expected. Word got around that she'd been using pain pills long before the incident. That explained a lot, though it didn't excuse it. Emma moved out of state. She sends me messages from time to time, nothing too deep, just updates: new job, new apartment, new therapist. I respond with short, polite replies. Not out of spite, just boundaries. Frank, the man who once gave me his last $40 and a second chance, I still don't know what happened to him. I've looked, visited a few shelters, asked around, no luck. But I keep a photo of him in my office. Well, it's not really a photo of him. It's a sketch I made from memory. Just his outline under a street lamp, coat too big, kindness in his shoulders. It reminds me where I came from, and what I owe to people who see value before proof. Ethan drew a picture of our family last week. Stick figures, sure, but 4 of them. Me, Olivia, him, and a tiny one with a bow. He handed it to me proudly. It's us, he said. I looked at it for a long time, then hung it on the fridge like it was priceless. Because to me, it was. I used to think family was something you were born into. Now I know better. Family is built, earned, protected, and sometimes, family means walking away from the ones who broke you once, so you can be whole for the ones who never will. As for the past, it still visits me sometimes, in dreams, in old songs, in quiet moments when the house is still. But it doesn't own me anymore. I own this life. I built it with my own hands. And finally, it feels like mine.